Hello, everyone, and welcome to this as we will break down all of the interesting and happenings of the realm of mixed martial arts. In terms of news, as look, it's mixed martial arts, there's tons of news going on in MMA right now. It's a very interesting time in mixed martial arts. So, let's delve in everything going on in the realm of mixed martial arts right now. First off, I'm Jason Hagholm. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like, rate, and subscribe button. It definitely helps out the channel a lot. And I plan on doing a lot more of these, especially as I said before, MMA, the news never really stops. And of course, the biggest news coming out in the realm of mixed martial arts right now is the fact that Francis Ngannou gave a very eye-opening interview yesterday with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, where he, dropped some real interesting truths that had happened or situations that happened. I mean, obviously, we saw the racist text that his manager had posted on his Instagram with a Las Vegas number, very suspicious there. And then, of course, he, delved in the fact that as he was on his way to the Honda Center for UFC 270 on Saturday, that he and his team got an email from the UFC saying that they were going to be sued as they were having talks with Nikisa Bederdan, who is, of course, the former chief financial officer of the UFC, but more importantly, right now, working with Jake Paul as one of his promoters for any of his boxing fights that he's had, more especially with Showtime, and of course, the couple fights with Triller. Wow, it's feels like the UFC tried to stack the deck, so much so up against Francis Ngannou. Obviously, with a tough opponent. Francis had a knee injury that he indulged with as well, saying that it was a MCL tear that's probably going to need surgery. But he had to tough it on through. But I mean, just the ethics that the UFC are going to bring out here are just very shady and stuff that you never really thought you or expected or hoped that the UFC would be in the business of doing. I mean, this is just feels very boxing like. It in a way, it feels like Francis Ngannou is kind of like a Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dana White in the UFC. They're just that corporation that we saw in pro wrestling in that Austin McMahon feud from the Attitude Era. And very interesting. Obviously, tactics we don't expect to see happen with the UFC. But I mean, it just shows where the situation is with Francis Ngannou and the UFC. And in the interview as well, Francis Ngannou was basically saying, I'm trying to use the letter of my contract here as an independent contractor to break out and do things that I want to do. And he's going to really push it. And I mean, look, he's got all the power in the world in some aspects, obviously, with him being the current reigning and defending UFC heavyweight champion. And, you wonder as well, because, I talked about it yesterday when I did the live recap of UFC 270 from Saturday, that Joe Rogan asked him a question about boxing, and someone in the comments, actually give them all the props in the world, said maybe that the UFC had Rogan ask that question, trying to slip up and, get something, plausible that you could once again put into the lawsuit or into a new lawsuit for Francis Ngannou in breach of contract. I don't think his answer was anything where he could be sued or have a breach of contract or anything like that. But it's just something out of character of what the UFC would do, ask a question about another entity that they're not going to be out there promoting, or at least in the near future promoting a boxing event, or they want to focus on what's next for you. I mean, there's tons of questions you can totally ask about this as well, like the knee injury in particular, because we didn't know much about it. We kind of had some news dropped about it going into Saturday night. So I don't know. I thought it's going to be uh, as well. It's just so interesting. And as someone here, Keyboard Warriors MMA says, think maybe Dana wants to avoid a Connor situation here, and Ngannou makes a ton of money boxing, then he takes his time coming back to MMA if he ever does. See, I don't know if he's gonna he's got his options here, but I think he kind of in a way still wanted to be a part of the UFC, and somehow the UFC always finds a way to just mess this up with a heavyweight champion. I mean, this is a golden goose that the UFC's had. The UFC's dreamed of having an MMA champion like Francis Ngannou with that Mike Tyson aura and that Mike Tyson knockout power, who's also right now still showing a lot of signs of improvement as a complete mixed martial artist. But I think if anything, they would try to mend fences and work together, because this is such a unique, guy they have in their promotion who's holding, one of the biggest pieces of gold that the company has in the UFC championship. And I just don't know why they met things that get so bad quickly. Dana's gone really at this Francis Ngannou's management. Then we hear about this lawsuit stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, right now, this is a guy you should try to turn a negative and spin into a positive, because he's just someone that can make you a lot of money. And this is a company that the UFC is just continuing to make record profit years. They're openly talking about making record profit years. I don't know how you don't let someone like a star of Francis Ngannou's caliber make some of that money. Or even more money. Francis Ngannou, in that interview with Ariel Helwani, also said he left around $7 million on the table, because the UFC, what they do is they just, put you on hold to, well, you need money and you're just going to agree to their terms. And I mean, people have been saying it forever, but especially when someone who's, once again, your current heavyweight champion goes into those details, that's just not a good look for the promotion, who, as I said before, they're openly talking about being one of the most profitable promotions and having the more profitable years, back to back with 2020. And of course, last year, 2021 being the most profitable year that the UFC's had. I mean, they saved money on a ton of costs, not really flying around the world putting on events. The majority of their events, all their fight nights happened in the Apex without fans up until the end of the year, where they charge just outrageous prices if you wanted to go see those events. And they didn't get to start touring until for pay-per-views until the second quarter of 2021. So I just don't know why they don't want to cut him a different piece. This is a huge property that they have on their hand, who's just coming off, a title defense with a bad knee against one of the most up-and-coming heavyweight contenders in Cyril Gane. I don't know. The UFC's looks very shady here. We still really haven't had any comments from Dana White about any of this. I saw even TMZ yesterday posted something about Conor McGregor. That's nice, but I know Conor's obviously good for clicks, especially on a website like TMZ, but this is such a big issue. And, credit to Francis for being so open and shedding light on a lot of these issues, because he didn't have to do that. He knows that his time fighting is up there. I don't know. He's obviously still under contract for another year with the championship clause in effect, but he has no fights left on his deal. And does the UFC find a way to strip him? I mean, then he's just for sure going to walk. And I think even Francis said it himself. So, man, this is just a real messy situation that continues to get messy and messy. And just the pettiness too. I don't understand. This is one of the top organizations in the world. You don't need to be so petty about anything here with someone, where you should try to find ways to work it, or someone in that company. If it's not going to be Dana White, it should be like a Mick Maynard or someone from the higher ups at Endeavor, because Francis Ngannou is just a valuable entity to your organization, and you should make it work for the both of you, where it should work for Francis and get him some of the funds that he wants, and make and then in the long run it works for the UFC. They get their dominant heavyweight champion with the fearsome attitude, the fearsome force behind him. So I just don't know. It's just a very sketchy situation. And then piggybacking off of that was the news that came out today that Jake Paul is going to invest in Endeavor, as he as we said before, Jake Paul, he may be a guy that's kind of built for YouTube, kind of some cringe stuff, kind of just to really push your buttons and because you want to see him get beat up. But he does have a genuine interest in fighter pay and trying to get UFC fighters who have a lot more arsenals, coming at their disposals than a boxer would. And boxing makes, so much more than any MMA fighter. Like, look, Francis Ngannou, yes, on Saturday, made $600,000. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Came into that fight with such a bad knee, without health insurance or anything like that. Like, that's just outrageous. So I give Jake Paul all the credit. I don't know how much him investing in Endeavor is going to do, because I feel like, there's boards and other stock properties and other things that truly, I'm not the most smart with what the stock market can do, but if he can find a way to make things fairer and a better even playing field and kind of just, being a part of there somehow, some way, good for him. I just don't think it's going to be the biggest deal unless he found a loophole where he was able to be like a partner with the UFC. But honestly, I don't see that happening. But once again, I commend anyone putting the form and the platform here for the UFC and their fighters to get paid more, because they all should be getting paid more, especially when you looked at some of those salaries that were disclosed from Saturday's pay-per-view, because in California they do disclose payments, and it's just not, and once again, not a good look for the UFC as such a big company that's openly bragged about making record profits, and you're just going to go out there and kind of just keep paying people what you want to pay them because that's just how you feel it should be. And people, and anyone's going to take that too because of where they're at. But hopefully we continue this dialogue and some change does become of it. But right now, Francis Ngannou, he does hold a lot of that power with him being the heavyweight champion in the UFC, and a very prominent figure and just a very open and well-spoken champion in the sport. So I commend him. I commend him and his management as well for doing what they're doing for fighter pay, really, and just anything of the sort like that. Moving on, though, to kind of some news around MMA shows and maybe a little bit more positive news is I was going to look at the PFL Challenger cards, but with the news coming out today that the PFL has re-signed and extended their contract. Extended and expanded were the words in the press release used, their contract with ESPN. I think that's a big win for the PFL, and I think it's really been a big win for the PFL here early in 2020, as they don't even have a show until their Challenger cards towards the end, the middle of February. But it's a big win for the PFL because the PFL had a lot of situations that could have gone bad. PFL, what they do, they resign and extend their coverage on ESPN, meaning that all their cards are going to be on, the main ESPN telecasts over the air, or and simulcast on ESPN Plus. So not this half stuff where our cards aren't going to be shown or what have you. And as well, look at the free agents that they have kept. They re-signed Anthony Pettis. They re-signed their current welterweight champion, Ray Cooper III. And then, as Yahoo Sports reported, it looks like Kayla Harrison is going to stay in the PFL. And, why wouldn't she? She's, a marketable face, a dominant champion, and she's just outclassing the competition. If you're going to stack up another, $1 million, win $3 million in MMA, good for you. That may be the best option for what you want to do for you and your family. I commend it. Does it affect her legacy down the line? Maybe a little bit. But you know what? Maybe she's just in the goal of making money. And I really can't hate anyone if that's their goal in this sport from coming out there and making money. But I just feel like things are going very well for the PFL. Staying on ESPN and just keeping all your free agents that you really had up for grabs. Rory McDonald's also going to be back. You still have Clarissa Shields, and she does bring some of that boxing eyeballs into your product that does need it. I just hope with the PFL, though, they do make some changes to the product. These shows just can't go forever. We can't have, 10 million stats. We don't need to know how fast a leg kick is or all this detail about the PFL smart cage. It's a great cage. They got some great features, but we need to dumb it down a little bit. And then as well, the challenger cards on Fubo TV. I mean, this is a good platform to get things going early. You kind of can invest in someone, winning a contract, getting, selected by the investors, like a Wiz Khalifa or a Ray Lewis, and getting in there. You kind of already put some, faith behind some people going in or some fan bases into there. So I think that's a win. And keeping Kayla, as I said, that's huge. Keeping Ray Cooper III, that's huge. You're bringing back a lot of people that are known with your brand. And right now in MMA, you want to have recognizable names and faces with a brand, especially someone like the PFL, where there's still, this will only be their third season as the PFL, fourth season as the PFL, because they lost the 2022 year because they shut things down because of the pandemic. So it's a win. I think PFL, they're winning heading here into 2022. And I think, honestly, there's someone to really look out for as a promotion and what they can bring to the table. Now, they've also talked about, towards the end of last year, having more in different weight classes. They need to do that. I think a bantamweight weight class and division needs to be one in 2022 with just how deep and stacked that division is across all of MMA. You kind of want to have your foot in there as that division continues to grow and become arguably right now the best in mixed martial arts. And PFL needs to do that. And some more female weight classes I wouldn't be upset about. And that seems to be something that they want to do. And that's just how I hope they roll. They've got these challenger cards from February to March, and then that kind of gives them a little bit of buffer time as they'll return on a Sunday. Actually, April 17th will be the first PFL card of this 2022 season. I think the PFL, they got a great broadcast crew going on as well. There's just a lot to like about what the PFL does. They just maybe need to dumb things down a bit, make it a little bit more simple. I know maybe the cages was a marketability ploy for them, but I think it was just a little bit too much information, and just make the shows go a little less long. I mean, some of these shows were just marathons to get through, and I'm glad to hear that when we get to the championships, it's going to be a 2-night event and not try to jam, 6 title fights into a one show that just goes on forever, because that was a bit torturous. Some great fights, don't get me wrong, and some great stories, but you're just kind of burnt out by the time you get to the end, and the faces and names you want to see compete on the cards. And yeah, as I said, the challenger stuff's very interesting. So I mean, PFL, they've got everything set up for success heading to 2022. So I'm very excited to see what they can do. And then, I mean, the last thing to kind of just get into as well is this MMA management beef that we saw on Twitter yesterday. Look, I mean, MMA managers are supposed to look out for their fighters, and I get they're looking out for their brand in some aspects, but man, that was just something that I really hated to see. It didn't make Sucker Punch and First Round look great as a whole. Just beefing over like something of saying that, one of the Sucker Punch, managers made a tweet that, everyone's saying that fans, think it's so easy to, pay fighters more and start their own promotions. But, you don't have the money, so you really can't do that. And then I know Josh Gross, a longtime MMA journalist, was just kind of asking questions, and then that account went away. Like, it was deleted, and then Sucker Punch came out and said, oh, it was hacked. And then they accused First Round. Like, this is the stuff that just sets MMA back. We really don't need to have that. The manager, they're good managers. I have no ill will against anyone that, from Sucker Punch that represents fighters, or First Round that represents their fighters. I think they do what they got to do for their fighters and their brands and everything of that nature. But man, just having that feud like that was just not what you want to see, and it just makes MMA look like the silliest and dumbest sport out there going in to start the week. It's just not what you want to see. So hopefully they can just be better and not get into any of these feuds that I know controversy creates cash, but I just don't think anyone wants to see that stuff kind of. I mean, we know there's competition for getting fighters and trying to win contracts over, but to come across like that on Twitter, not a good look as a whole. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting week here of MMA. Of course, there's no UFC, but there's a Bellator card. Bare Knuckle has their first show of the year as well, kind of set the tone for the Knuckle Mania card a few weeks after the fact. And there's also a CFFC show on as well from Philadelphia, where Aaron Jeffrey will defend again the middleweight championship against former PFL fighter in T-Rex Harris, which should be a very good fight. And as well, that co-main event of Jose Perez and Paul Capaldo, that's one to definitely keep your eye on two really solid prospects at 145 pounds that probably get signed to either the UFC or Bellator or something later on this year. So yeah, really that's pretty much what we got going on. I know, as of course, on the pay-per-view, UFC did announce UFC 276, which is the return of International Fight Week in July. That's another interesting story as well, because that's supposed to be a weekend that the WWE has Money in the Bank, where they've already kind of booked Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas for both July 2nd and July 3rd. All depends really when the UFC is going to have this event, probably July 2nd, and maybe WWE goes back for one night here for Sunday as a pay-per-view, as they kind of tend to want to just do those Saturday night shows. But that's still just a wait and see. But it's nice to see International Fight Week back in the summertime, and looks like we're getting that normalcy that I think we've been just craving for the past 2 years and everything like that. So once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll try to make this a regular habit, especially with how much news had gone out and come about in the week or so. Maybe we'll come back here Thursday at some point around noon. Not sure. Really all depends on the news cycle. But if you like what I'm doing here, definitely hit that subscribe button. Definitely like it. It helps the channel a lot. And rate as well. Leave a comment in the comment section. Trying to get this channel to grow. Doing a lot of things. Have some interviews lined up for the week that will be one will be conducted today. And the other will be conducted tomorrow, and looking at hopefully getting a third interview as well that'll be posted on this channel and shared on respective sites as well. So yeah, when those happen, I will definitely post them, and you'll see them here. And so that's why you got to subscribe, because getting these interviews is important, and getting to share these fighter stories as well, very important. But anyways, as it's now 12:30, we'll say peace out and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday afternoon.